So, when Frodo and Sam went to Mordor to destroy the ring, they had to go through the Black Gate in order to get into Mordor. And I think that's a shame, and I'm sure that both of them were wishing that there were more doors. Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Lord of the Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 7, The Eye. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of The Rings of Power. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for The Rings of Power up to Season 1, Episode 7. If you have not seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things will be spoiled for you. And first of all, I do have to apologize for that cheesy joke that, yes, I did steal from a meme, which I thought was funny, though. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this episode. So, this episode, here's the thing about this episode. Yes, last week's episode was a really powerful, action-packed, blow your socks off episode. So it does make sense, and I've seen this often on many TV shows where they, when they have an episode like that, they follow it up with a sort of a breath of air where it's calm and you get time to sort of relax and reset and follow the characters a bit. Hold on, my cats are bothering me. I need to let them in. Sorry about that. Anyway, so when there's an episode like that that's so action-packed, the next week you gotta take a sort of a calm down, which is what this episode is. And so normally I would have no issue with that. But this show took forever to get things started, and there's only 2 episodes left in the season, and I'm thinking, how are you going to end the season already? It seems like the story just started getting going last week, and now the season's going to be over. But anyway, I'll look at that when I do my season-long review. And by the way, this show is called The Rings of Power, and they have yet to even mention the fucking creation of the Rings of Power. I mean, they kind of hinted at it, but that's not the same goddamn thing. Anywho, so I'm a bit frustrated with the pacing of the show and how slow-paced it is, and so, yes, what in most shows would be absolutely not just acceptable, but necessary, in this show, I'm kind of like, really? Really? I mean, you're gonna spend a whole episode with characters just talking to each other after when we need to get fucking things moving? But anyways, it's just my frustration with how slow this season has been moving. And how really, how's there only 8 episodes in the season if it's gonna move this fucking slow? I don't know. But anyway, so the episode's called The Eye, and it starts with a shot of a Galadriel's eye. Get it, The Eye. When I first saw this, I didn't know that name of the episode, and I was like, what is this, Lost? Fans of Lost will know they were obsessed with starting episodes on a close-up on someone's eye, because that's how they began the whole show. But anyway, they did it all the fucking time. Anyway, so in this episode, we get the aftermath of the creation of Mount Doom and the blacking of the Southlands, Mordor, and I'll talk about that later. God damn. And we see people are separated for no good reason. It doesn't really actually make any sense, because, how would that happen? I don't know. It seems like everyone wouldn't get separated like that. But they wanted to do a cute little episode where they each split up into separate groups. So we want to have a separate group with like Galadriel and Theo going on and talking, which I thought was kind of interesting. Don't get me wrong, building the relationship, which again, I will point out I would be perfectly okay with if this fucking season had more episodes or moved quicker. But anyway, and then we also get, like, the queen getting blind because I actually thought she was going to die, but she gets blinded when trying to save people from the burning house. And then Isildur dies, which is really pissing me off that they're doing this death fake out with Isildur. We saw him in the goddamn prologue of Lord of the Rings. We know he's not dead. Why the fuck are you doing this? This is pissing me off. We know he's not dead. Why are they doing it? Of course, but to be fair, doing unnecessary death fake outs was something that the Lord of the Rings movies were obsessed with doing too, like Aragorn falling off the cliff from the warg attack and then miraculously surviving it. But anyway, I just remember when my sister first saw that, she was like, "What is he, Wile E. Coyote?" Fall off a cliff. Anyway. So, yeah, so we get those split up into the groups, and we get, fucking Elendil having to lead the queen back, which it was kind of powerful, them, him pointing out that she couldn't see. Like, I thought that was really good, where she's like, when is this smoke going to be moved? And there wasn't, and he was just like, like a couple of miles or so. But then he went, after lied to her, he did went up and right, when she said, I see, he was like, do you though? Like, so that was actually a powerful scene. I did really like that. Yeah, but the death fake out with Isildur, and they haven't even revealed he's still alive yet. So that has pissed me off even more. That it wasn't just isolated to this episode. I don't know if they withhold it for the next season. That's gonna piss me off of something awful. But they're obviously gonna I don't know. I don't know if he's still in that little town that the Orcs had taken over, and if he's gonna get captured by the Orcs or hang out with the Orcs or be I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, so all that stuff with the Numenor trying to relocate, and also they didn't. Well, okay, so when Bronwyn and Arondir, or whatever his name is, they didn't reveal that they were still alive until the very end of the episode. So that death fake out actually worked because these characters were just made up for the show. So sure, they can die. Especially Bronwyn, when Theo thought she was dead, I believed it. So that that part of it actually worked for me. Oh, and then curly blonde hair dude that I barely knew or cared about died. Oh no! I'm sorry, but the show did a really terrible job of getting me invested in these Numenorian characters like Isildur and his buddies. I really did not give a fuck about them. So when one of them died, I'm like, whoop-de-doo, I don't care. Sorry. But the show was not very good in developing these characters. But, so that whole Numenorian storyline was kind of a wash for me. As I said, some of it might have been, more acceptable if the pacing of the season had been different. But we also get two other storylines, which I did like more, that I did think were better, that did actually move the story along more. First, we get the Harfoots one, which I really it's kind of funny because I had classically been complaining about the Harfoot storyline at the first half of this season. I absolutely hated it, and now is my favorite storyline. Well, at least in this episode, it was my favorite storyline. So they really got it going. And to be fair, unlike that, Numenorian bullshit, they actually built up and got me to care about these characters. Yeah, it was really powerful when they got to the land, it was destroyed, and they're kind of implying it was, I'm not sure of the geography of this, they didn't show me a map this episode, but anyway, that it seems like this was near Mount Doom, and that one of the rocks or whatever fell on them, because that dude was implying that. So they get to their spot, and it's no good, and they ask Meteor Man to fix it for them, and Nori is like, no, don't bother him. But really, I think she's kind of scared of him now, which is a shame they went that route. But he tries to fix it, and this little kid almost gets hurt, and so they don't like him now, and they're like, well, I mean, they're not mean to him. They still acknowledge all the good stuff he did for them. So he's like, look, I think it's better now if we just part ways. You're looking for your little stars. You go that direction. I'm sure someone will help you find it. You'll be good. But then once he leaves, they find that all of his chanting and whatnot did spring everything into action, and there's fucking apples and shit everywhere. And so they're so happy until the mystics, which, who the fuck are these people? When they show up, and it's kind of Nori's fault, because if Nori was trying to protect him, because they were following him, and she's like, no, you're going the wrong way, he went that way, and they didn't buy it. But then Nori's father came out and threatened him with the fire. Not a smart thing, because they didn't turn the fire to cold and then lit all of their wagons and set them ablaze. And if I understand, I didn't fully get this, but if I do understand, they also set all their food ablaze as well. And so now they're back to being fucked, and now they don't even have the means to travel, which is what their whole culture is based on. So they talked about, the main dude did mention how, we're gonna die anyway, because I think it's because they lost all their food. Although they didn't blow up all the trees, or did they? I can't remember. Anyway, or I didn't. Not that I remember. Couldn't tell by looking at it. Maybe they did. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was there. But anywho, so they realize Nori wants to go on this adventure to save Meteor Man from those evil people, and it becomes kind of like a fellowship situation. I will go with you. You have my whatever, and so Nori's sister and mother wants to go, and then the main dude who runs the place wants to go because he's good at finding paths. And so they set off on the adventure, and he says, yeah, we're all going to die anyway, so why not? Which, I don't think they're going to die. I think now they probably want him to come back so he can bring all the shit back to life again and help them. I think that's probably the main dude's motivation for going, where Nori, I think, really does want to save him. So that was really powerful stuff. I'm just kind of pissed off at who the fuck these mystics are, and I think it's very obvious now though that Meteor Man is a wizard, if not Gandalf himself. Although I don't know if they'll go in that direction, but if they want to pander to the fans, then they probably will. I mean, they've already fucked around with the timeline a lot. So anyway. So I wouldn't put it past the show to do that. So, but I would be okay with that. As I say, I'm not a Tolkien purist. So I don't really care if they're switching things up. But yeah, so I'm really invested in the storyline, and I'm eager to see where this goes next. So then we get the dwarf, Doran and Elrond. And as I said, their relationship was the strength of the whole show. It's the thing I like the most, and I think it was really powerful, particularly this episode, where they asked, Doran asked his father for help, and his father said flat out no, because the elves are just trying to cheat death, and that he wants, he's saying that nature should take its course, and Doran's like, this is my best friend that you are condemning to death, and his father's just like, get over it. and then seeing his, it was such a powerful scene, by the way, when Elrond comes in after he'd been argued. Durin, told his wife what his father's decision was, and Elrond comes in, and all he has to do is see the look on Durin's face and his sigh, and realize, like, what the situation is, that his father said no, and there's nothing that Durin can do to stop him. And then Durin and his wife, like, start crying. Like, I'm almost get tearing up now. That was a really emotional scene. That was so powerful. And Durin's wife was trying to urge him to just defy his father and go get the fucking mithril anyway. And Doran's like, no, I can't defy my king. This is that would set a terrible precedent. But then when Elrond leaves in the crush of it, and he sees that little piece of mithril like bring this leaf back to life, he's like, fuck it. So him and Elrond go, and they find like a ridiculous amount of mithril, but that makes no difference to his father, who turns up and exiles Elrond, throws him out, and then like takes off fucking Durin's thingy that shows that he's the heir, meaning that he's no longer the heir. And so everything looks to be really, really dark now, but we see Durin's wife consoling him at the end, saying, look, I don't give a fuck what your father says. You are the heir, and you will get that mithril eventually. Which we know that the elves don't go extinct, so we gotta intuit is correct in some manner. But that was really powerful. Like, I really loved the scenes between Durin and his wife. I think this is a really strong relationship. These are really strong characters. So this was also really good stuff. But then, of course, the big shocking ending is we got when Durin's father threw the leaf into the little cave where all the mithril is. We see that it wakes a Balrog. Dun, 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 which again also defies lore, but I don't care. But we'll see what happens with this Balrog. Some people are predicting the Balrog will kill Durin Sr., and that will allow Durin Jr. to take over the kingdom and get the mithril, but we'll see. See how that goes. Anywho, with the Númenóreans, I didn't mention that they went back after they met up with Galadriel. They went back to Númenor to get reinforcements because Galadriel convinced them. Where Elendil was kind of like, let's just get the fuck out of here. We should have never came here. This is a huge mistake because he thinks his son is dead, which we know for fucking fact it isn't. So it pisses me off. But anyway, so they go back to get reinforcements, and we'll see how that goes. It's funny because from my understanding of the lore, the Númenóreans had like outposts on Middle Earth, so it wasn't like this situation where they were like had to go to Númenor, that there were Númenóreans already there, unless I'm misinterpreting it. But then again, we know that the show doesn't follow the lore, so I thought it was completely wiping that part out and changing it. But then they said there was an old Númenorian colony, so they did have colonies there, but no one was there. I don't know. I didn't really understand what the show was getting at. But if they follow the lore in any way, shape, or form, which they kind of have to in some ways, because they have to lead to the Númenóreans defeating Sauron, because that's what we saw in the prologue of Lord of the Rings. So they do have to come back in full force and set up colonies. One of them, which will eventually become Minas Tirith. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, and I do get the feeling that they are going to show the doom of Númenor, even though I think that doesn't happen until much, much later in the timeline. But as I said, they're kind of screwing with the timeline anyway, which I don't mind too much. But anyway, so then we end the episode with the orcs and, Adar taking over the village and saying that this is now their home, because now the sky will be darkened and will never be daylight. the guy says, we're saying, something like "Hail Adar," King of Southlands, and then Adar's like, "No, don't call it the Southlands. That name isn't there anymore." And so I was really expecting him, and the dude's like, "Oh, what should we call it then?" I was expecting him to do, "We should call it Mordor." Wink. But instead of doing that, they did something way worse. They literally spelled it out for the audience that this was Mordor. Like, literally. Like, they just had a text said Southlands and then scratched it off and then had a text that said Mordor. This is literally treating your audience like a bunch of fucking idiots. It's literally spelling it out for the audience. Now, I know not everyone is a huge Lord of the Ring geek or like doesn't even like follow the videos or on YouTube and shit, and so not everyone would be aware that the Southlands will become what we know later on as Mordor. But I think anyone with a brain would be able to piece this together from the fact that this is clearly Mount Doom that's being created. And they're talking about this land that's created in darkness where the orcs can live and make their home. Anyone with a brain would figure out that that's Mordor. Now, there might be a few people who don't care much about Lord of the Rings or maybe don't pay attention who might not get it, but this is something I've learned about filmmaking and storytelling is you can't play to the lowest, common denominator in your audience. You have to treat your audience as smart, and even the ones who aren't smart will pick it up eventually. And that's what would happen. Like with later episodes that would make it even more clear it was Mordor, they would get it. But, if they were going to say it was Mordor, I think they should have had Adar say Mordor. Like, that would have been better than having that stupid text. Now, this is my theory, and I don't know this for sure, but this is how I read this scene. This is what it says to me. I think the creatives of the show, the showrunners and the director, that was their original intention, because that's the way it should be done. The original intention was not to spell it out for the audience, was to just say, let them, like as I said, just let them piece it together themselves, because anyone with a brain could figure this out. If not now, then at least eventually. But I think it was a studio note. I think the studio heads, someone higher up, got really nervous. It was like, well, how do I know it's Mordor? We need to make it very clear. And so they added that fucking text in post-production. That's what I really think happened. I think the studio fucked this one up. It said Southland, Mordor. Like, that's just terrible. That is so terrible. That is treating your audience like idiots. That's literally spelling it out for them. Something that was very obvious to anyone with a brain. So yeah, I think it was the studio that fucked it up. I think the creatives actually had the right idea, which is why Adar didn't answer. But I would have rather, once the studio made that decision, they probably should have went back and like ADR'd like Adar saying Mordor or something. Like maybe have his back turned so you don't need to reshoot it or something. Just have the actor say the line. That would have been better than that fucking text, which was so dumb. Anyway, so my rating for the Eye out of 10. God, this is a tough one, because do I rate this episode in context of the season or out of context? Because in context of the season, the rating goes down because, as I said, the season overall has been way too slow. But I think actually I'm going to rate this out of context of the season, in which I'll give it an 8. Extremely good, because there were good character moments. The Isildur death still pisses me off regardless of whether or not it's in or out of context. But the other stuff with the Theo and Galadriel bonding and the Queen going blind and all that all works out of context. In context is like, really, we're going to take forever to slow down and do this shit after the season took so fucking long to get going. But out of context is fine. But the other stuff works, like the Harfoots and the fucking Doran and Elrond stuff was great. But it doesn't get a 9 because I'm still kind of pissed off we don't know who the hell these mystics are yet, or who Meteor Man is, and this definitely needs to be revealed in the finale. If they lead us to season 2, this is gonna piss me the fuck off. Anyway, also that whole text of Southlands and Mordor, that definitely brings it down to a point. I can't give it a 9 because of that bullshit too. So my rating is an 8. Anyway, that is it for my review of this latest episode of Lord of the Rings of Power. I shall be back next week and every week there, henceforward. That's force, whatever. Which is just one more week, actually. To cover the Lord of the Rings of Power, and I also cover many other shows on my channel, such as House of the Dragon, Star Trek Lower Decks, and in fact all things Star Trek. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.